Some brands are legendary. In every category, someone sets the standard, and some companies create raving fans. Join Scott Wozniak and Caitlin Johnson of Swaz Consulting as we dig into the tactics and tools behind great organizations. How did the legends do it? And how can you become a legendary brand too? Caitlin, I am super excited to dig into what we're about to talk about, but I'm going to frame it a little bit for those who don't know what I'm about to ask and why we're doing this. We love talking about how to build legendary brands, and a huge part of both of our journeys is actually learning from legends who built these brands. We go hang out with them. We see how they work. You and I have been on teams for great brands like the Ritz-Carlton properties or Chick-fil-A. And so huge part of this process is, man, when we get access to some of the greats who figured some of this best stuff out, man, picking their brains and getting their stuff in. So you were telling me that you just got to meet a legend that both of us know about, and I haven't met, and you met him recently and had a whole conversation. So I thought I would debrief this, and then like on the spot, I was like, let's record this because cool stuff. So
yeah, share the insights. Yeah, no, I love how you just teed that up because, yeah, I had an opportunity to meet Chuck Coonradt, who is just a legend when it comes to business consulting, specifically in using gamification. And so he's known as the Godfather of Gamification. Now, this guy wrote a book in 1985. Right.
Wow.
He's had iterations since, and he talked about recreational sports and how we love playing those. So how can we turn work into a game that we enjoy playing? And that's the entire premise about his book. Actually, I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube or any sort of clip, I'm grabbing the book that's on my bookshelf, and it's called The Game of Work: How to Enjoy Work as Much as Play.
Yeah, this is like the classic that kicked off what is now an entire like industry and category. And you're right, his version of games was not video games. That's that now that's dominant. In the 80s, Pong by Pac-Man, I think, back then.
Right.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. So video games were just coming into the world, right? And so recreational sports and learning about what's inbounds, what's out of bounds, how do you translate that into business strategy? How do you cascade communication to your teams? How do you impact behavior change at scale? Just looking at recreational sports guidelines. And so I had this really amazing opportunity to meet him, and it's so fun how this happens, right? So we partner together. So I work with Swaz, right? And we talk about
get this question off. How do you get access to these people? Like what does that work? So tell us, Caitlin, how do you get access to a legend?
So I have been exploring an LMS system. It's called MyQuest, because I have a business in gamification and using video game design,
and
much like
that's in the works, right?
Yes, book that's in the works. I've got a community that's in the works. Right. And so what I'm doing is very similar to what Chuck has done, except for I'm just using today's vernacular and video game design versus recreational sports. And so in collaboration with MyQuest, this LMS, I creatively said, hey, would you give me a discount for your platform if I did a web series for you? Crafty, right? Actually, I got that from another legendary person, Walt Disney. I was watching a PBS special on Walt Disney and how he went to a struggling TV network. And I forget if it was ABC or NBC. I forget which one. And he said, if you were to invest in my park, which nobody wanted to invest in his park. He said, if you were to invest in my park, I will make you cartoons and boost your engagement level on your network. And I was like, that's freaking brilliant. Not only does he get money for his park, but he also gets marketing because he made commercials to say, come to my park that I'm building. So I spun off of Walt Disney. Thank you, Walt Disney. And used that tactic with MyQuest to say, hey, there's an opportunity for us to collaborate in a creative way. And so I kicked off my first webinar series on my birthday last year, November 20th of 2024. And one of the attendees knows Chuck. And so she emailed me after and was like, I loved how you were explaining how to use gamification in today's terms to business strategies. Would you be interested in meeting the Godfather of Gamification? And I'm like, do you even have to?
I know. Hold on. Let me think about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is how I met this person. So, it's validation to me, like when you really get into your niche and you surround yourself by amazing people who are interested in similar things you are, just the ripple effect of who you get to meet happens, right?
Okay, so
yeah,
I'm going to comment some of this out for those of us who listening are like, how do I do this too? So you're right. There's layers here. The first is that you started creating something in this zone. If you want to meet, connect, and do things, I think in previous generations, the sequence was first I go meet people, the gatekeepers, and then the gatekeepers give me permission, and then I go create something of value, right? Like you got to get chosen by the big boss or discovered by Hollywood or whatever the zone was. There was somebody who had to let you in, and then you could start creating and adding value. And I think it's backwards now. First, you start creating, and then that creation connects you to the big movers and shakers, the players in the space. And if you're sitting around thinking like, if someone would just give me a shot, I'll make something. It's actually reverse. Start making something, and that making will put you in position to start making the connections that accelerate your life.
Yeah, I really like how you said that because there are both trains of thoughts out there, right? I was just talking to another entrepreneur the last week, and he was like, "Oh, I don't build anything until I'm paid to build it." I'm like, "Well, how do you know that what you're building is going to work?" I'm like, that's a approach, but I guess it's a little different. Like I know what I'm building works because I've done it. I've done it for Ritz-Carlton. I've done it for Lowe's Home Improvement. I've done it for Bass Pro Shops. And so now I just want to do it for scale for other people. And I need to collaborate with the right people to get it out into the world to do that. So that's where I'm now searching for who else can I partner with strategically to bring this concept out into the world.
So you make a cool series. You're right. You've been doing this internally. You start doing it externally. It's not just Ritz, right? And you start doing more, and then that connects a connection, and then you get an introduction. Like, did he reply right away? How difficult was it to get him to?
Oh, no, he's amazing. He replied right away. He's older in age, right? And so when I had a chance to speak with him, he had said, I've been able to create a lot of wonderful things in life. And at his age, I think he said he was 76, if I remember correctly. He's like, I just want to give back. I'm at a position in life where I want to give back. And he graciously gave back to me a complete hour of his time where he was just pouring into me and mentoring because of course, I have a legend on the phone and we did a Zoom and had a great conversation. And I just asked the vulnerable questions, like I did with you, Scott, when I first met you of like, hey, I'm building a business. What would you recommend I do? And so I asked him the same. I'm like, look, I'm trying to build a business just like yours, except for I use video game design. What would you recommend that I do? And so many ideas. Like one of the first ones, and something I've been struggling with is how do I explain what do I do? I use gamification strategies to increase team engagement and motivation. Like what the heck does that mean, right? And so I've gone from, it's going to take me 15 minutes to explain to you what I do. Meanwhile, I've lost who's ever paying attention to me. And so I've been trying to fine tune in like 30 seconds or less. What do I do? And he gave me the answer.
Well, yeah.
He's like, he said, when people asked him, what did he do? He said, I fixed companies.
Oh.
And so now my version though, Scott, I don't necessarily feel like I fixed companies. I fixed teams.
I see it. But it's not, gamification is the method.
Yes.
Outcome is an upgraded team, right?
Yes.
So it's like the unlock. You could go back and try to explain all the methodology and this differentiation from that methodology. Yes.
Yeah.
and they don't really
Yeah.
care. We were literally just riffing on this. Like, I'm learning a lot more about sales and building sales teams, and this is one of them. You don't talk about your features and bells and whistles. You talk about the benefit they get out of it. And until they
That's
buy
exactly right.
that, they don't care about any of the methodology. So
Yes. He
that's
said to
all
really,
that just says.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. How does he say it? How does
Yeah.
he say
Yeah. No, he said, well, yeah, and you're exactly right. Because he said the gamification is the methodology. When you start to explain how you do things to people, that's when you start to get the defensive.
it?
Oh, yeah, we have someone on our team that's reading a book about that. Oh, yeah, I've tried that before. And so you've squashed the curiosity when you start to tell them how. And so when I said, okay, so if you fix teams, how do you take the conversation past that? He's like, well, because you say something so broad, like, and curious, you fix businesses? Like, what does that mean? So now people are asking you, what does that mean? But he doesn't answer the question yet. He
Oh,
says, now you start asking them questions of, well, tell me what you're working on. What are some of the struggles that you and your teams or your organization is working through? So now he's going into this consultative mode of pulling information out from you. And then he'll say, that's exactly what my team and I work on fixing. We will take that problem X and then do blah, 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 right? And then start to fill in some of the how.
that's brilliant.
Right.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Chuck. Oh my gosh.
totally reverse of how I've done it for many years.
Yes.
We literally just before recording this, I was telling you how I am. I've been in the process of unlearning a lot of bad habits on how I communicate, and so I think I've honestly been
Yeah.
in spite of my approach.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's it. Like they have to own their scenario, have it vivid, be clear, and then when you understand that, you can say whether it fits or not, rather than
Yes.
convince them that your methods are cool.
Yes. Well,
Ah,
think about it. And because I was struggling with, well, why have I felt the need to take 15 minutes to explain and differentiate what I do compared to, other goal strategies? Because ultimately, the way that I use gamification as a methodology is to help teams and individuals achieve their goals. It's a way to stay
yeah.
focused, right? It's a way to stay engaged. It's a
Mm,
way to build a mindset of persistence and creativity to overcome the obstacles that get in your way.
yeah.
And so that takes a while to explain. And all of a sudden now I'm so excited about what I do. And I guess that's the problem too. It's like I now got excited that I lost full focus on you and your problems,
Mhm.
and so why do I feel the need? Let me go back to my question. Why do I feel the need to differentiate myself? I think because society wants us to. Think about your resume. Your
Mm.
3 to 4 bullet points on what you did as a gamification strategist should have data and results and numbers of what you do, not necessarily the emotional connection of how I fix things. And so I think when we're selling, or rather just purely influencing people to do things differently, it needs to connect to an emotional, what is your problem? And
Yeah.
how can I help you with your problem versus 96% of the time, I will get you results.
Well, yeah, one makes me the hero, and one focuses on you and makes you the point of the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, well, I want to call this out because we went past it, but I think this is important. I've also
Mm.
had a sort of similar experiences. I've not met Chuck, but when I do meet these legends, and I've met a lot of other great legends, there's this idea like, how do you get access?
Mm.
Somebody has to make an introduction that's on like a cold thing almost never works. But when I have a warm introduction, I have found them easy to get at. Like they're not, there've been exceptions, but by and
Mm-hmm.
large, they're not at all difficult. They're like, yeah, I'll talk. I'd love to pour back and share with you. And I think most of the reason why people don't meet more with the legends is because people self-select out. They're intimidated and assume Caitlin Johnson would never speak to me. Like,
Oh,
why?
yeah.
And it's like they're a regular human being. If they're good,
Yes.
now, again, there have been I won't name them because I don't want to shame them online and on air here. But there've been a couple guys that I'm like, oh, okay, you're just a punk, and you're pretty sure that nobody's good enough for you. But
Right.
the biggest and best ones are not that way. The biggest and best ones are like, Yeah, let's talk. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to share everything with you. Let's meet. And I got
Right.
to go a little out of my way and make it convenient for them. It's not like I get,
Mhm.
every Monday morning, they're going to meet with me for an hour every week. But like if you come with specific questions, you got somebody who says, yeah, she's the real deal. I have found it surprisingly easy to get time with some of the greats.
Mhm. And Scott, I would say it's not even just the greats that flow works for, because
Yes.
once I had my conversation with Chuck, and then I realized, because the person that introduced me said, there might be some collaboration opportunities, and even again, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. When I started to talk with him, feeling out, are there collaborative opportunities at this point in time? I wasn't getting any bites on that quite yet. So I was like, okay, let me turn this into just a conversation. And so at that point, I went into networking and interview mode, and a couple best practices that I know with networking, or at least reaching out to people who've been there, done that, is come prepared with questions to ask them. Because if you want to network with somebody and interview, the first question out of their mouth is, how can I help you? And
Yeah.
that was one of the questions Chuck had asked. And I'm like, oh, okay, how can you help me? So yeah, how can you help me? Help me understand your path so I can replicate it, right? Or do it better.
Yeah.
And so when you are communicating with somebody, networking, interviewing, having questions to really pull from them. How can they help you? How can you learn from them? Because humans are eager. And I actually found this out too when I was unemployed
Mm.
for 8 months during the pandemic.
Mm.
People are so willing to talk to you. You just have to do your due diligence and come with the right questions to ask, or just some questions to ask to point them into how they can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I've got some standard questions I've done enough of this over the years. I got a kind of couple go-tos, but
Mhm.
ideally, you want to do a little research before you talk to that person, and just pull that out. And it just occurred to me, I haven't done this because it's been a new era, but I bet Chat GPT, which in the last
Mm,
year has become a real tool, you could probably say, I'm going to meet with, Chuck. What questions should I ask him if I want to
right.
get mentoring advice from him? And ChatGPT probably could load you up with some cool stuff. Um,
Yes. That's a
I've got
great
a
idea. Because,
meeting
yep.
with a hero of mine coming up in May, and now I'm like, maybe I need to revisit my questions and update them a little bit.
Yeah.
Be really cool. Hey, real quick, this podcast only grows through word of mouth. That's it. So if there's any part of this podcast that you think someone else should hear or would be helpful for something they're working on, it would mean a lot to me if you would share it. The whole reason I do this is to share the helpful stuff I'm learning with more people than I can reach in person. It could be via text, DM, whatever's easy. You hit the share button and you can help them and me in 5 to 7 seconds. Thanks.
Yeah. And I would say also too, like once you get those questions, because ChatGPT is a great brainstorm partner, but it's also way too much information at
Good,
times.
good,
Yeah.
yes.
So narrow down to the 2 or 3 of your favorite
Yeah,
questions.
you're not going to get 17 questions answered. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I think of a couple college students who have reached out to me over the years to just ask me questions about my career path. How did I get to where I am? And I'm happy to talk with them. And one gentleman I could just tell was ruffling papers, and he probably had like 17 questions. And I was like, well, in 30 minutes, we're not going to get through all of that. So, what
that's
do
fair.
you most want to know?
No, I agree. ChatGPT is a great brainstorming tool. I think you named that really well. Don't stop when it gives you a page of answers. That's your
Right.
beginning of the process. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell me what else he talked about, because we kind of got into this. So he talked about how to talk about gamification. Anything else? Any cool insights from his career or
Well, he challenged me on even using the word gamification.
interesting? The Godfather of Gamification suggested not using the
Yes.
word.
Yes. And
Okay,
here I
unpack that.
am. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it.
Okay, okay.
Um, because it is a hot word right now.
Yeah.
But however,
Yeah, why were his concerns? What was his thought?
because there are certain biases about the word,
Okay.
certain perceptions of what gamification is. And I actually have real life experience with this. So over the past 4 years, I've been getting on stages with the Association of Talent Development, ATD, so learning and development leaders,
Love those guys.
who are great audience for gamification, because one of the default methods of using gamification is in learning, whether it's in schools with kids or in courses that are being created by leadership development creators. So the problem that I've been noticing, though, is that there are a lot of businesses, software systems, and organizations who really just touch on the surface level of gamification, the bells and whistles, the badge. I find it so funny when I come across a system that says, we gamify your learning. And I look into, well, what are the elements that you use? And it literally is a certification upon completion. And I'm like, that's compliance credit.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, it's like painting a little coat of gamification over an old system and calling it game, because now there's an award at the end. Like,
that's right. Yeah. So not every organization does gamification towards its core, the strategy behind why you use those bells and whistles. They don't always use the psychology behind how people play games. And so when you just blatantly talk about gamification, you have to understand, at least this has been my experience, you have to understand you probably have to debunk somebody's educational awareness of what it is.
The pro of using the word is you're hitting a hot buzzword right now.
Correct.
Con of using the word is some people who hear that have already got a definition in their head that's wrong. And so you got to overcome that.
Which is an interesting sales technique, right? Like you could lean into, well, let me tell you why you're wrong, but you probably wouldn't use those words. But, let me help you understand how I use it. But you're pushing a rock up a hill.
So does he just skip it entirely and go right to, I just help your company get better? And he fixes companies.
Correct. Right? Yeah. So once he then gets into more of the how, this is where he pulls the methodology. Okay. So it is not tip of the tongue explanation of how he operates. It's more of, once we get into the weeds of how we're going to do this, it's inspired by gamification. And I don't know if he necessarily uses those words, but that's what I took away from his explanation.
I'm not an expert on this consumer trends, kind of generational stuff I'm about to say, but anecdotally, as a human kind of going in this space, I wonder if this is generational because, or there's a difference generationally, because video games and game playing is massively emerged. And so I am in the category in the sense of I'm a co-founder of a video game company, as we've talked about previously. And so paying attention to that. And there's this clear divide of like our generation right on the edge and below grew up playing video games, and still the great majority of them still play some form of video games, whether it's a silly game on your phone like Candy Crush, or the deeper platform games. Like the idea that you would play games and games is fine. But just above us and older wise, games for them were in a different mental and even emotional category as like a non-serious, video games are weird for kids, and even sports is in its own bucket. And like, they just, so they're, again, anecdotally, I'm not sure that I can claim that I know more than Chuck knows on this. Like, Chuck, let me teach you, buddy. But I wonder if some of that is what's going on, is he faced a different mind frame around what games and gamification are. Whereas you talk, especially millennials and younger, like we're both Gen X, you've forgotten. Yes. By the way, just for the record, there's another generation in there. I don't know how many times this little soapbox of mine. Have you heard this? It's like, let's talk about boomers and the transition millennials, and then the rising generation, Gen Z. And I'm like, hey, does anybody remember? There's another generation in there called Gen X. And literally, I will see generational like keynotes and articles, and Gen X
about Gen X.
It's like crazy to me.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways,
interesting. Okay.
Sorry, a little bit of a Gen X soapbox. Like, I still exist. Like, I'm here, guys. Boomers, right? Don't forget us.
I'm technically millennial.
Oh, you millennial? Okay, I knew.
But I border. I very much border.
I couldn't
Yeah, because
remember how much younger than me you were. Okay.
there's mentality though. That, I mean, but it depends, right? You
So
got
sorry,
we're
Caitlin, I
rabbit
need to
holing for a
remind
second.
you,
Yeah,
Gen X exists. You're like, what are you talking about, Gen X, Scott? I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
won't forget about you, Scott. It's okay.
It is crazy. Now that I say it, watch out for this. I'm telling you, you
Mm.
will see article after article, and they will list the generations and literally not even mention that Gen X is one of the options. It's the
Okay, wait, I got to rabbit hole a little bit more on these generations for
come
a
on.
second, okay? Because my daughters, who are, well, I guess they're Gen Z, maybe, no, they're the next level. I
The
think they're
Alpha,
Gen
Gen A.
A.
Which, hey, just want to say, you know where all the names these come from? Gen X started it. Thank
Gen
you.
X started.
Because you know why? What millennials originally were called? Gen
What?
Y.
Oh,
And then
yeah,
Gen Z is just the next followership. And then A,
right.
and it all started with Gen X. Just, I
Yeah.
can tell you, we're the ones that kicked off all that.
Okay.
So,
So, can I tell you a funny story about Gen A though? Because my in our family we've been kind of joking about the generations, and so and the slang that Gen A has, and my daughter at some one point the other day was like, "That's Gen A." Can I tell you the only thing that pops in my head is Forrest Gump
ah,
and Gen A. It's
yes.
like you know you're old when Gen
Yeah.
A.
Yeah. Okay, millennial. Okay. Is it too soon for that? We're not old enough for that joke? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. I
That's
had to
real.
say that
No,
because it was I
that's
can't get that out of my head whenever I hear Gen A now.
so funny. Wow.
Okay.
So yes,
So
and what
gamification and maybe
oh yeah.
why you
I,
shouldn't call it
I
that.
wonder if millennials and below are comfortable with the game space in a way
Yes.
that the olders are not. I mean, X and above, and
Right.
I'm right on the edge of X and millennial, right? But I also
Hmm.
had a super tech forward home, so I've got like this half and half thing going on. Whereas
Hmm.
I'm a digital native. Like my dad actually worked in the prototype shop for IBM. And before the stuff hit the market, my dad was the team that built all the prototypes of all the new things.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
we grew up with like PCs in the house when I was a little kid. We were like soldering motherboards and goofy weeds. And so I just grew up with tech, whereas most of my generation did not. But I say all that to say, yeah, if you're tech savvy and you grew up on video games, then maybe it's a different emotional button you push. I don't know. Maybe it's
I
just
would
a
agree.
different problem.
I agree. And I think that's why I'm going back and forth on. I don't know if I fully want to eliminate the word. I may not come straight out of the gate because, again, like I said, in on stages and talking to audiences in Association of Talent Development, there is a bias around the word because of their experience,
Yeah.
positive or negative. However, I also do a lot of coaching and talking about my gamification methodology
Mhm.
with college students, and they freaking love it. They're
Yeah.
like respawning. What do you, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like when I start to pull some of that vernacular into the mindset of how to overcome problems, how to level up in life, how to craft your career path, all of those things, like it makes sense to them when you put it in video game terms.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's some of the answer is read who you're talking to.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
if they're in a certain life and age range, you're like, actually, I lean hard on it because it
Sure.
clicks for them. And if
Hmm.
because I mean, younger folks are not yet in the leadership positions for these organizations. And
Hmm.
so you're talking to like a business owner and you got to lean into them. They're probably in a different mindset. And maybe Chuck's got that one more dialed in.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
it.
such a good point. So
Yeah.
that is a piece of feedback he provided that I am still thinking about. Now, a way to go around maybe the
I just
word a
want to, I'm
little
going to
bit.
pause and kind of label this chunk for people who
Okay.
this does actually relate to building raving fans and cool stuff. How you explain what you do and who you are is a big part. Are you making the customer the hero and putting it in
Mm,
frame of mind, what makes
hmm.
sense to them? Um, it's speaking their language. right? Learn their worldview, their language, their space, and then put it in a way that makes sense to them and make them feel awesome about themselves. It's their benefit, it's their lingo, it's not yours. And that might be the big insight behind this when you talk to your customers, when you talk from marketing to operations, how you frame things and the words you use, as much as possible, play in their language, not yours. And it really make a difference. Humans like to say that we're not bothered by the words, like I'm a rational adult. Like if you ask, there's all these studies, like how impacted are you by the word choices? And we're all like, not me. I'm a mature, intelligent thinking human, right? It doesn't bother me. And then you do the study and the words we use totally skew our behavior. One of my favorite ones I read was they actually they do these studies, but there's a fake study in it. Like they say the study's about this, but really they're measuring that, right?
Yes.
So they had all these surveys and tests and they say they were measuring for, but really what was happening is they primed half the group randomly with words about youth and energy and life. And they had all the quizzes and tests and stuff they were taking were all about those. And the other half of the group got words like age and death and dying and, disease and then here was the study. They measured how long it took them to walk down the hall and turn in their papers. And the people who got the old word priming took longer to walk down the hall. And I can't remember the amount, but it was something meaningful, not like a second longer. Like they were substantially slower walkers after everything else all being equal. Average it out, the people. And they're like, and then they'd ask, do you think you were affected by the words? And they're like, no.
Nah. How fascinating. No, I believe it. Yeah.
The words we use, it really, really matters.
Yeah, no, I 100% believe that. And I have a master's degree in interpersonal communication. So truly understanding how to effectively work with small groups and communicate in that space. And so I absolutely agree. Words matter. And so as I really appreciate you kind of going 50,000 feet for a minute on the things that I'm saying, because what I'm sharing can be applied to the right target audience, the word choices that you're using, and how you're conveying the experience of your service or methodology that really needs to come and take the back seat when you're trying to influence people that you can solve their problems.
Yep, that's it. It's not about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
right.
Speak in a way that works for them. Okay. Anything else that you got from Chuck?
Well, yes. So the other piece has to do with the services that I'm offering.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so this was part of my epiphany that I recently had that you, I think, saw a glimpse of because I had shared it on social. So I'm getting ready to launch a 90-day training program. And 90 days.
And for the record, all you guys need to go check it out. It looks awesome. So there you go.
Thank you. Yes. It's using my Quest. So the LMS I told you about, 90 days. And in the 10 years of which I have designed gamification strategies for corporations like the Ritz-Carlton and Marriott and Lowe's, 90 days is the sweet spot to where you really start seeing the traction of results.
Totally.
After 90 days. Yeah. After 90 days, it's kind of like business as usual and your brain gets really crafty and you start to find ways to like, I don't really need to do that. I can do something else. So you should change your strategy after 90 days. So I'm building this training course. I'm really excited about it. Level 1 is self-paced. Level 2 is cohort-based and coaching with me. And the epiphany I had after having Chuck's conversation, like all of this is marinating. First, 96% of users will drop off on self-paced training.
Yep, sadly.
That's not the impact I want to have, right? Second, cohort is better because there's accountability and there's a community, but then it ends at 90 days. And so you will experience an impact. But again, the impact I want my clients to have is long game impact, sustainable mentality. And so what I really realized is that the outcome of gamification is you become a goal getter. You are getting that goal. It's just the methodology of how you're using it. And as I was thinking about that, the true impact, again, from 10 years of facilitating in front of audiences and for creating courses as an instructional designer, when I'm in front of an audience, they will learn a lot from me. as a subject matter expert, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they learn so much more from each other as they're applying the knowledge, listening to other people's challenges. How are they going to apply the learnings? And so it dawned on me that in order to make the biggest impact in helping people, empowering people to achieve their amazing, epic goals in life, personally and professionally, it's got to be a community of people to support going after this, not just a one and done training.
That's so
it's
good.
Ongoing. It's an ongoing lifestyle of becoming a goal getter.
Yeah, no, there's two things in there. One is the people learn richly and deeply in community. Totally agree with that. Lived that my own life. There's another thing you did twice in there. I'm going to call it out. It's not I get a skill or I do a thing. What you're inviting them to do is I become a different person. Like I am a new, and then fill in the blank, here's my title. And for you, it's I'm a goal getter. It's not I learn how to get goals or I go get a goal. Those are all nice, but the higher value, the highest level of invitation is I'm inviting you to become a different kind of person. And that's usually marked by some sort of title or label, like I'm a blank. And this is a super cool thing for all of us to do with our customers is invite them in, not just learn how to do a thing, but to become a fill in the blank, whatever yours is. And so, Caitlin, it's goal getter, right? I'm a goal getter. And
that's right.
Oh, one of the evidences of that is I do this cool gamification from Bold Bird, and these guys are awesome.
And this is how, right?
It's the outcome is I am a new identity. Man, if you can give people like an identity change, oh, you are hitting like raving fans gold right there.
That's right. And that's what Chuck was helping me understand is that's the emotional outcome of what it is that I do is I help people become goal getters, people who are creative, persistent to overcome the challenges that get in the way of their goals, finding new ways to move around it and innovation, right? And being able to actually see the success using some of the tactics that we use to play games and find out if we're winning or not.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Awesome. Basically life-changing conversation for me.
Yes. We can run off these insights for years. And like, it's a course correction. Like I was going here and now I'm going 20 degrees, a little to the left and play that out over time. That gets pretty big. Man, that's cool. And okay, so I'll wrap up the recording portion here, but just be like, guys, who are the heroes in your space? Do you know anybody that can connect with them? I mean, LinkedIn's amazing for this. If you're not connected to Caitlin and I on LinkedIn, that's where she's doing a lot of her cool announcements and stuff. You should find us on there. But there's also a lot of ways like, who do you know? And can we get an introduction? I'm telling you, it's not as hard as you might think to get with some of these legends and ask, how'd you do it? What do you think? Here's what my process is. I'm wrestling with this part of it. What advice would you give me? You can get some really, really powerful stuff. It's how we kind of got up to where we are. Kayla and I just had the audacity to ask people.
The bold, vulnerable questions.
What do you know? They actually answer. It gets pretty awesome. If you enjoyed this episode, you might want to sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's all new content with the same themes. You can subscribe for free and learn more about how we partner with our clients to build legendary companies at swozconsulting.com. That's www.swozconsulting.com. And if you want to get access to the actual tools and techniques that we use with our elite consulting clients, check out our online program at legendarybrandsacademy.com. That's www.legendarybrandsacademy.com. Greatness is possible. You just have to build the right engine.